Everybody, this is Kelly of Roho Chief Clothing, and this is my Instagram, as you see here. And when you look here, I'm going to click on the link. It will say creator Kelly _McAlpine. That's to my personal Instagram account. But right here it says follow link to my YouTube, Facebook, and clothing below. So I'm going to click on this link right here. And then when you click on that link, then what's going to happen is that kids sports tee, as you see, baby's clothing, it's a shirt for a toddler. I even have bodysuits for babies. And then going back, I have the category for also women. Tank tops. I also have polo shirts. I also have long sleeve shirts, as well as hoodies for women as well, and also for men they have the same thing. Men tank tops, men t-shirts, got v-neck shirts, comes in a variety of colors, sizes. So, check me out if you would like to have some fashion that honors your ancestors and shows the world that you know exactly who you are and proud of it. Now, let's get into the video. Let's look at this, and it's a book that's called Freemasons Repository. It is volume 23 on page 314, and it says that is sublime in the prehistoric past centers upon America as the certain which has hereto concealed the prehistoric connection between the peoples of ancient Egypt and America is lifted. It is seen that the people of the eagle on the Nile, being descended from the original people of the eagle on this continent, the twain are one, and that prehistoric America was the original Egypt or Eagle Land. Prior to the mighty dispersion in the days of Peleg, when the earth was divided and the great globe itself was nearly rent asunder, ancient America is seen to have been inhabited by a grand race of men who left their deathless traces upon the surface of the globe and among the stars of the sky. And it is found that all of the heraldry of the nations and all of the emblems, ceremonies, and figures of speech, of religion, and of epic poetry are derived from the art and the science, the triumph and the destruction of the ancient Americans. It follows, therefore, as claimed by the author, that all heraldry of the nations and all emblems, ceremonies, figures of speech, of religion, and epic poetry are derived from the art and the science, the triumph and the destruction of the ancient Americans. Before the fall of Lucifer, before certain great cosmic disturbances took place involving our whole earth and touching the western continent, America was the seat of the grandest empire and the highest civilization which the human world has ever known. So it says that Mr. Parsons and America, rediscovered in the 15th century and repopulated in the 17th, was recovered Egypt and the promised land and the land of the constellations of the eagle and the swan, whose places can be shown to be fixed in America by the same combination of celestial and terrestrial geography, which gives Russia, the bear, to China, the lion, the British India, the unicorn, the Great Pyramid of Pleiades, which constellation, that gigantic Bible in the stone, is directly connected to Herschel, Proctor, Smith, and other of the foremost astronomers. So I'm just going to leave it there. So that's what your occultists say about America. And so basically what it sounds like to me is that they're saying that all your emblems and symbols for royalty and your ancient art and sciences, it was most advanced in America. And it's also saying to me, also, it's suggesting that America, or the American continent, is older than all other civilizations. And that also that Egypt is a descendant from the Eagle people that is from America. It says, ever since my first back-to-back research trips to Egypt, 1996, and Mexico, 1997, I've been discovering, researching, and presenting profound cultural parallels shared by ancient civilizations worldwide. The Maya-Egyptian parallels are the most striking. Some of these parallels are recognized by Victorian and pre-Victorian era scholars and writers like Charles Etienne Bessier de Borreg, Edward Herbert Thompson, Augustus L. Plogan, Ignatius Donnelly, and Zelia Natal. Many of these scholars credited Plato's lost continent of Atlantis with being the source of the similarities. Other parallels I discovered throughout my original research and investigation. The Victorian era idea that the lost continent of Atlantis was the source of the parallels, a theory called diffusion, has fallen out of favor with scholars over the past several decades. As a result, 19th century ideas have been shelved in favor of a new theory called independent invention, which holds the ancient inventions such as pyramid construction naturally occurred in more than one place at the same time at different times. Okay. Then he has his book. It says, in 2011 book written in stone, I revived the theory of the Victorian age scholars and took their work a step further by exploring new evidence for the possibility that a primordial mother culture, now lost to time, flourished during a prehistoric golden age. In my subsequent books, articles, videos, and lectures, I explain how this golden age was documented by the Hindus, the Greeks, Romans, and Aztecs, and other ancient civilizations, and I hypothesized that the mother culture may have been the source of the parallels shared by the world's first cultures, kind of a missing chapter in the human story, as Graham Hancock puts it. Are the following 10 Mayan and Egyptian parallels evidence that a sophisticated golden age civilization, now almost completely forgotten, once existed in the ancient past and was a kind of mother culture to the world's first known cultures like the Egyptians and Maya? So, what they have here is parallel pyramids and stone serpents. So to your left, we have the step pyramid from Mexico. And then we have the step pyramid in Egypt. Okay, so the pyramid to the left is the pyramid of the Kukulkan in Chichen Itza, Mexico. And then the right is the, I think it's pronounced the Saqqara pyramid in Saqqara, Egypt. Both the Maya and the Egyptians built pyramids. In fact, both cultures didn't just build pyramids. They built similar step pyramids, pyramids with a series of steps leading upward toward the apex. As we can see here, that's more, there is clear evidence that both Egypt and Mexico step pyramid builders engaged in a kind of serpent cult. Because of its ability to shed its skin, the serpent symbolizes regeneration and rebirth, concepts shared by both Egyptians and the Maya. We are told by scholars that these concepts figure prominently in their metaphysical belief of eternal life and a life after death. With this in mind, it is especially interesting to note that not only did both the Egyptians and the Maya build similar step pyramids, but they also crafted similar stone serpents, which are visible within the site of their parallel step pyramids. We can see examples of this in the photo below. It says a stone serpent within sight of the step pyramid of the Kukulkan in Chichen Itza, Mexico. Right? So you see the snake, and then you see the pyramid, and then this is the one. It's a row of snakes, and then you see the step pyramid right there. It says a series of stone serpents in sight of a step pyramid at Saqqara just outside of Cairo, Egypt. It says, what are the chances that the two unrelated civilizations separated by the Atlantic Ocean would have come up with not only step pyramids but also adjacent or nearby stone serpents? By itself, the step pyramid stone serpent parallels is interesting, but certainly not dispossessive or definitive proof of a direct link between the two civilizations, but there's more. Similar elongated skulls. So this is Mexico. You see that long head, and then you have Egypt. Okay, so the Maya modified skull at the Museo of National Antropológica y Historia, Mexico. So I'm thinking that that means like the National Museum of Anthropology and History. And then it says here, you got the elongated skull described by Egyptologists as the child of Amenemhotep IV, Akhenaten. The parallel Mayan Egyptian phenomenon of elongated skulls and cranial deformation has been known to scholars for centuries. Among both the Maya and the Egyptians, the practice seems to have been performed to differentiate the elite from the lower classes. So I'm guessing that what they meant by that is to make a difference between the people that was the ruling class and the people that was considered as, I guess, lower class citizens. It says the earliest descriptions of cranial deformation among the Maya were reported by the Spanish chroniclers in the 16th century. In 1843, the American explorer John L. Stevens published Incidents of Travel in the Yucatan, describing an artificially deformed skull that he found during one of his excavations. The 19th century archaeologist Augustus Le Pelagian, 1826-1908, in his book Queen Mu and the Ancient Sphinx, described the practice among the peoples of the Mayan cities of Copan and Palenque. Popular authors like Ignatius L. Danelli, 1831-1901, in his book Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, elaborated on Le Pelagian's analysis. According to an article written by a series of doctors entitled A Look at Mayan Artificial Cranial Deformation Practices, Morphological and Cultural Aspects, which was published on December 2010 in the Journal of Neurosurgical Focus, the Mayan practice of cranial deformation served to differentiate the elite from the common classes. Induced deformation of the cranial vault is one of the form of permanent alteration of the body that has been performed by human beings from the beginning of history as a way of differentiating from others. High-ranking Mayan families of the classic period differentiated themselves from the lower classes with their head shape. The social hierarchy had been seen in pottery, figurines, drawings, monuments, architecture, and where characters with oblique deformation are dominant. It says, look at Mayan artificial cranial deformation practices, morphological and cultural aspect. The idea that the Mayan elite practiced cranial deformation is interesting because the Egyptian elite also seem to have performed a skull elongation technique possibly for the very same reason of differentiating themselves from the lower classes or common people. Shown in the example above is a statue of an elongated skull from Egypt's Amun-Ra period, the period of the reign of Akhenaten, 1353-1336 BCE. The skull is described by scholars as belonging to the daughter of Egyptian pharaoh Amenphesis IV, also known as Akhenaten. Artwork featuring Akhenaten's daughters No-Fir, No-Formi-Atu, and No-Fri-Nur, with elongated skulls, 1375-1358 BC, is repeated in other pieces of the Amarna art. Okay, so they go into that, so I'm going to skip past that. So then let's look at this. It says parallel corbelled vault arches. So then here's an archway in Mexico. And then here's one in Egypt. Similar, very, very close. It says the Mayan Corbel Arch is in Copan, Honduras. It says an example of Egyptian Corbel Archway is in the Red Pyramid in Cairo, Egypt. The Corbel Arch was used in both Mayan and Egyptian architecture. A corbelled arch, also called corbelled or corbelled arch, is an arch that was used, the so-called corbelling construction method, to span a space or void. A corbelled arch is constructed by offsetting successive courses of stone or brick in such a way that they project towards the archway centers from each supporting side. The gap at the apex is then bridged with a flat stone. It said the scholar Lawrence G. Desmond, after receiving his PhD in anthropology and archaeology from the University of Colorado Boulder, carried out archaeological research in Mexico and Guatemala for 40 years. He regarded as a leading scholar in the field of Maya archaeology. While expressing some reservations about lay Pelagians or active imagination in the article chronicling lay Pelagians' downfall, Desmond nonetheless appreciated the significant and essential correctness of lay Pelagians' ideas regarding the corbelled arches shared by both the Mayans and ancient Egyptians. It says Augustus de Pelagian, a pioneering Mayanist, renowned for having made the earliest thorough and systematic photographic documentation of archaeological sites in the Yucatan. For Pelagian, the most important evidence of the cultural diffusion was the Maya's corbelled arch. He believed had proportions that related to the mystic numbers of 3, 5, 7, which is stated were an ancient Masonic master builders. Those same proportions, he also noted, were found in the tombs of Chaldea and Etruria, in ancient Greek structures as part of the Great Pyramid in Egypt. He was basically on the right track methodologically, and he did make a number of intriguing observations. Then you have, they say here, similar hieroglyphic writings. Okay, you see here, this is the Mayans. And then here, you got Egypt's. It says the Mayan glyphs in the Museum of the Palenque, Exectio, and right Egyptian hieroglyphics from the tomb of Seti I from the 13th century before Christ. It says the Egyptians and Mayans both used hieroglyphs consisting of pictographs or symbols to express meaning in written language. Mayan writing, which is often described by scholars as the most sophisticated writing system in the pre-Columbian Americas, was dubbed hieroglyphics by early 18th and 19th century European explorers, including Augustus Le Pelagian, who noticed its similarity to Egyptian hieroglyphs. The Egyptian hieroglyphs consist of phonograms, which are placed at the beginning of words to represent sounds, whereas ideograms are used to represent objects or ideas. Mayan hieroglyphs consist of pictographs written in neat blocks that include phonograms and ideograms. It is possible that the Mayan and Egyptian glyphs both evolved from the same proto-language, or that perhaps one of them may have in fact served as an origin for the other. Obtaining a satisfactory answer to that question depends on the successful decryption of Mayan writing, which has been made vastly difficult by the bonfires of the 16th century Christian conquistadors who regarded the precious and irreplaceable Mayan scrolls as the work of the devil. Similar scenes and motifs. There are many similar scenes and motifs that link the Mayan and Egyptian civilizations, too many to list all of them here for purposes of this discussion. The smiting scene. So you see this man in Mexico, and he's definitely a reddish brown skinned man, which today that more than likely they probably would have listed him as Negro, and he looks like he is killing a person that looks as though like they were of Asiatic or Eurasian descent. Then in ancient Egypt, you see this pharaoh here, and he's doing the same thing. He's grabbing an enemy by their hair, which appears to be maybe an Assyrian. So they have that in common, and they're grabbing the person's hair in the exact same way. It says the Codex Mendezo is an Aztec codex created 1541, depicting a warrior grasping the hair of a submissive captive. Right is the Namir palette, depicts a pharaoh, usually identified as King Namir, grasping the hair of a submissive captive. It says, to be clear, this is not a Mayan or Egyptian parallel, but the Aztec Egyptian one. However, the smiting scene is depicted on Mayan artifacts as well. So, okay, so this one was an Aztec one instead of Mayan, but they were saying that they basically also show it on in Mayan artifacts. Okay. So then skipping down, it says parallel initiation scene. So you see here in Mexico, you see these two people, and then you see a person that's in the middle. And it looks like these people are pouring out something out of what appears to be like a vases or something. And then here, you see a man. He's in the middle. And then these two bird-headed gods are appearing to do the same thing, like they have some sort of vases and they're pouring some sort of like liquid above this man. It says Mesoamerican scene from the Codex Borgia from South Central Mexico, Soler, 1902-1923, Codex, page 31, Diaz and Rogers, 1993, plate 31, depicting what may be an initiation or baptism by water. The right, it says Egyptian scene from the temple of Esna, depicting what appears to be initiating or baptism by water. According to John L. Lowe Reeson and Emetrius, professor of anthropology at Brigham Young University. So now we know for sure that's where they got it from. Even the Christians, the Catholic Church, where they said you got to be baptized by water. John the Baptist baptizing his cousin, Jesus. Now you see where they got it from. They got it from these ancient cultures. Okay, so skipping down. The parallel twin serpent motif. Okay, you see in Mexico. The twin serpents. Ancient Egypt. As an Aztec sculpture featuring twin serpents facing opposite directions, often described as the double-headed serpent in the British Museum. And to the right is the Egyptian Aten, or sun disk symbols like this one appeared above the main entrances of Egyptian temples and feature twin serpents emerging from the solar orb facing opposite directions. Another Mayan and Egyptian parallel is visible in the twin serpent motif, so-called serpent bars, depicting a serpent with two heads and no tail, adorn the lintels of some Mayan temples, such as Nunari at, Exmal. Mayan statues and reliefs depict serpent bars in the hands of kings and priests. An example of this is depicted in the book Ancient Civilizations of Mexico and Central America by Mesoamerican archaeologist Herbert Johnson Spidden, 1879-1967. Spidden published the following drawings of the Mayan serpent bars. Okay. All right. It says, note the similarity that these Mayan serpent bars share the Egyptian Aten symbol, which adorns the lintels of some Egyptian temples like Trojans, Chios at Philae. Both the Mayan serpent bar and the Egyptian Aten symbol depict double-headed serpents connected back to back, facing opposite directions, left and right. Human jaguars. Okay, the human jaguar is Maya. And then you have a human lion for ancient Egypt, the Sphinx. So you even have that similarity. It says to the left, a were jaguar statue from the early classic period, 250 AD, 600 AD, Maya lowlands, Petén, Guatemala. Right, the Sphinx of Hatshepsut, Egypt. The Egyptians and Maya both created art and architecture depicting human beings transforming into or having transformed into felines. For Egyptians, the feline was the lion. For the Maya, the feline was the jaguar. Side-by-side comparisons of the Egyptian Sphinx, a mythical creature with the head of a human and the body of a lion, and what Mesoamerican scholars describe as a were-jaguar or a werewolf, reveal many commonalities. It's derived from Old English were, meaning man, jaguar, and jaguar, a large member of the cat family prevalent across Mesoamerica. Shown here are 3 Egyptian kings depicted as Sphinx. Okay, which is, you have the lion bodies and the man's face. Okay, that's interesting. And then here you have Mexico. And it says, when asked to explain this symbolic meaning of the Sphinx, mainstream Egyptologists associate the Sphinx with the general concepts like royalty and monarchy, with the qualities of majesty, nobility, and so on, but these descriptions do not answer the fundamental question, namely, why convert a human being, a king, into a lion? What does the human into feline symbolism mean? Just as Egypt's pharaohs were depicted as lions, Mesoamerican, Olmec, Maya, and Aztec kings and rulers were depicted as jaguars. We can see this in the following examples. It says here, the Maya and the Olmec depicted themselves as felines, jaguars in the art and architecture as evident in these figures. The jaguar is America's largest and most powerful cat, and for more than 3,000 years, it has been Mexico's most enduring symbolic animal. The jaguar's image prowls the art of most ancient Mexican civilizations, from the Olmec to the Aztec. The jaguar has identified with sorcery and magic and regarded as the spirit helper of shamans and sorcerers, as well as the most dazzling symbol of priests and kings. In pre-Columbian times, before the Spanish arrived, animal and human features were often combined to create what we regard as a fantastical creatures possessing supernatural strength and magical powers. No surprise then that the kings and rulers of the Aztecs, the Maya, and earlier civilizations adorned themselves with jaguar skins, skulls, fangs, claws, carvings, paintings, or statues of humans wearing jaguar clothing or appearing to be half human, half jaguar are more than simple artistic images. They represent a fundamental ideas and beliefs of the Aztecs and their predecessors. Among the classical Maya, AD 250-800, the jaguar's brilliantly colored pelt was used as a royal clothing for dynastic warrior kings, as a covering for royal thrones, some of which was carved in the shape of a feline, as the Maya cities of Palenque, Uxmal, or Chichen Itza. Classic Maya rulers believed that using the jaguar's name gave them prestige, and so there are examples where it has been attached to a king's royal title. Similarly, in death, archaeological evidence from Uchiatán and Cam Inal de Juya in Guatemala, Altan Ha and Belize revealed the Maya's kings were buried with animal skins, claws, and fangs. From Dr. Nicholas Sanders, The Jaguar in Mexico. Okay, so we have that parallel. Then you have the parallel third eye symbol in Mexico. You have the two eyes, and then you have a round disc in the middle. And then over here, it's a painting that looks very similar. Since both the Maya and Egyptians used the same third eye forehead dot symbolism, on the left we see the relief from the nunnery at Uxmal, Mexico, showing a circular dot in the location of the forehead. In India, the forehead dot is called the bindi, and to signify the third eye chakra. On the right, examples from the Egyptian tombs and steles now show a similar third eye forehead dot. Okay. Ancient civilizations in the Americas like the Maya and Aztecs left use the same forehead dot symbolism as Eastern culture's right head of a rain god, as described by scholars, with the third eye forehead dot found at Chichen Itza, Mexico. The Buddha image shown as the bindi third eye forehead dot, typical of Asian statues. And then parallel back-to-back lions and jaguars. As is here, you see here in Mexico, you have the jaguars. In Egypt, you have the lions. It says twin jaguars enmeshed as one, depicted in front of the governor's palace of Uxmal, Mexico. The Egyptian Akir lion's glyph depicted on the Egyptian papyrus of Oni, courtesy of the British Museum. The Maya and Egyptians both use the same back-to-back jaguar, Maya and lions, Egyptian's motif. On the left, we see a statue in front of the governor's palace at Uxmal, Mexico. Okay, so then I'm going to skip down. Parallel to cross, or tau cross. So you see here, it's a cross, and then you see something like coming out at the top of it, and then here you see something that's similar, but the image here, it looks like some sort of cross, and they have like something going across it. I don't know if that's like a plant or something, going above it. It says Le Plomb, Pelagian, found an even more amazing similarity that ties the Egyptian and Maya cultures to each other and to Freemasonry in this book, Sacred Mysteries Among the Mayas and the Quiches, I guess that's how it's pronounced, Pelagian, expressed his belief that the Egyptians and the Maya used the very same tau cross in a way that made him believe it had the same meaning in both Egypt and Mexico. The tau was a symbol used by ancient cultures in Greece, Ireland, Spain, Egypt, and Mexico. The tau cross is also a very important Masonic symbol appearing on Masonic tracing boards, aprons, jewelry, and more. Okay. All right. And then you have it here. So on the apron. It says the crux ansata, symbol of symbols among the Egyptians. It was placed on the breast of the deceased, sometimes as a simple T, sometimes represented as supported on a heart. It is also seen adorning the breasts of statues and statuettes and Palenque, Copan, and other ancient cities of Guatemala, Nicaragua, and various localities in Central America. The origin and the meaning of the mystical T, that symbol of hidden wisdom, as it has been dominated by scholars of our days, found on in Egyptian monuments and in temples in the hands of the gods, in the tombs of the breasts of the mummies, also met with the ancient edifices of the Maya and the statues and altars in the temples of Pele, Augustus Le Pelagian, sacred mysteries amongst the Mayas and the Quiches. For the Mayan Egyptians, the tau was no insignificant object. They used it in their art, architecture, funeral rituals, ceremonials, and their altars and thrones, in their jewelry, and they depicted themselves and their gods holding the symbols on statues and reliefs as shown in the images above. More commonly known in Egypt as the Ankh, the T cross is an ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic ideograph symbolizing life in the sense of the eternal life or spiritual life of the soul. The Ankh has a loop handle, partly disguising the T or the tau cross. However, the Egyptian Ankh is no less a letter T than the Mayan T cross. We should keep in mind that its Latin name, cruz ansata, means cross with a handle. In 1994, the uncovering of the T-shaped stone pillars among the world's oldest dated megaliths at the famous archaeological site of Göbekli Tepe provided stunning confirmation of the tau cross played a major role among the most ancient civilizations around the world. Okay, so then you see the Ankh here, and then you also see, okay, that's the Ankh, that's the T, the tau cross, okay? Okay, so now, number one, we finally made it to the matching, I think it's pronounced Pertich temples. It says the upper temple of jaguars at Chichen Itza, Mexico. And then you have Trajan's kiosk at Philae, Egypt. Very similar. And it says, I researched the ruins of triptych temples all over the ancient world, and most pronouncedly among the pyramid cultures in the late 1990s, as demonstrated in my 2011 book written in stone. These temples all celebrate the same universal religion, perennial philosophy of a non-duality that was shared across all of antiquity. So you see Mexico, and then you see the temple with the 3 doors. You see Egypt, and then the 3 doors at the bottom, and then even in Cambodia, which we know is in Asia, and they're all step pyramids. The pyramid culture is all built the triptych 3-door temples with a wider and taller middle door than the 2 flanking it. The abundant occurrence of the triptych across the ancient world is not a random coincidence. The triptych represents more than merely an architectural element. The triptych is the chief symbol of an advanced universal religion. It says, in my books I have shown how the twin outer doors of the triptych temple symbolize duality, or the pairs of opposites. The center door symbolizes the unity of the twin outer doors, or the balance of duality. Egyptologists and Mayanists recognize that the concept of non-duality, also called balance of opposite sides, form an essential feature of the core wisdom teaching amongst the ancient Egyptians and the Maya. So basically, these are the 10 parallels between the 2 cultures, and as we see that there are a lot of different of the same things that are basically, similar. There's 10 different things that are basically similar to one another, even though they might be a little different, slightly different. So, yep. So yes, tell me, what do you think about this? I think this is very interesting, and this connects back to the other video that I did prior, which talks about this culture, which talks about Thoth, the god that came from Atlantis. And this ties into that because they think that there was a mother culture that was from Atlantis, and that the information or the knowledge or the wisdom was passed down to both the ancient Egyptians and the Mayans. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm out.